Hello, and welcome to another installment of something I like to call, Yeah, That Happened, where I tell you a tale that happened to me. Or did it? Nah, everything you're about to hear happened at some point or another, but what will you believe? Guess what? We're going back to the goose to deal with my shitty time in retail. I still work retail, but it's not as shitty. Anyway, let me take you back to the state of Maryland, where I used to live, and the tale of a man who I have affectionately dubbed Stan Lee's evil twin. Let's get on with it. I used to work at a convenience store and gas station. There were rules that we had to follow in order to, not get fined or get our boss into trouble. Alright, so Mr. Twin would come in twice a week. He would pull up his rather nice SUV to one of the pumps, and he would ask me to put $100 on the pump. He would pay with a $100 bill. No problem. I can usually break 100. But not this day. Oh no. Not this day. See, a lot of people bought lottery tickets, and a lot of those lottery tickets paid out pretty good numbers. One guy walked away with $500, which was pretty nice. Except that we had to take money from some of the registers in order to cash out their tickets. I was out of 20s, I was out of 10s, and we were so low on 5s that one of my coworkers had to leave the store and borrow 5s from a sister location. Not that kind of sister location. So here I am, ringing people up, explaining to the people who are trying to pay with hundreds that I can't break that. And then comes in Mr. Twin. He hands me a $100 bill. I explained to him calmly that at the time I can't break his 100. He says, I don't want you to break the 100. I want you to put the 100 on my car. I explained to him that I can't do that because I already know what's going to happen. I explained to him I don't have any 10s or 20s. I explained to him that every week he comes in and does the same thing. Pays with 100, comes back in, and gets $50 or so in change. And I don't have the money to break that right now. He flat out says I don't have to be such a bitch about it. I tell him I don't appreciate that language, and if he has an issue with my service, he can talk to one of my managers. I direct him to the office that he can go to via 10 steps, slightly to the left, with the entryway looking directly into the path of our deli. 30 seconds after he leaves, he is behind the deli counter yelling at one of the deli workers, who happens to be a friend of mine. It's never a good idea to threaten a tired Latina who is holding a knife, but that is what he was doing. Get your manager out here right now, or so help me, you'll never have business from me again. Coworker puts down the knife, says, Fine, wait on your side of the counter. Goes into the office, can't find the manager, goes into the break room, we have found the manager. The manager comes out and talks to the man. Meanwhile, I'm still ringing people up and hey, look what I can do now. So many people came in with so many 20s that guess what? I can now break a $100 bill. But Mr. Twin is so angry about the situation that he doesn't hear me calling out, Sir? Sir? Sir, you know what? Never mind. I'm just gonna ring you guys up, and if he has a problem with that, he can come back over and yell at me again. How can I help you? I now have so many 20s that I have to make a drop. A store rule was if you had more than 5 20s, you had to drop those 5 20s. So that's what I was doing. Or would have been doing if Mr. Twin hadn't stormed back over and gone, "Oh, So you can break that guy's 50, but you can't break my 100? I explain the situation one more fucking time. But, being a professional, I stay calm, take a breath, put on my best service smile, and explain to him, well, sir, 10 minutes ago, I didn't have the 20s. But it's been 10 minutes since you ignored what I told you and went behind the deli counter to bother one of my coworkers who can't help you, instead of going into the office like I asked you to do. I can now break your 100. Would you like for me to put $100 on your gas pump, sir? He throws down the 100. I put it on the pump. He comes back for his 50-some and change. And then Mr. Twin glares at me and storms out. Behind him is another customer, who will often come in twice a day, every day, to fill up his many, many, many sports cars. This guy was loaded, and he was friendly. So I look to him, and he looks to me, and he says, I just want 20 on pump 3. I put the 20 on pump 3, everything's fine. He comes back for his change. All's good. A few days later, Mr. Twin comes back in, does the same exact thing. This time I can put the full 100 on his pump and he still complains about it. What, you can do it today, but you couldn't do it the other day? And I go, sir, I've explained it to you a few times. I'm sorry if it's confusing. Same thing, put the money on his pump, he storms out, he comes back for his change and leaves. This repeats for a few weeks. He's still pissed at me for not being able to do one thing one day. A lot of my regulars recognized him as the guy who bitched about something that happened a few months ago. I literally had a couple that came in regularly, like every night, to get their coffee. And they asked me, if he's bothering you, we can have a talk with him. They were a nice couple. It's been a few months. Mr. Twin has not shown his face for 30 days or so. Everything is going back to normal. And then Mr. Twin comes in and goes to our deli counter and orders a sandwich. He has broken the routine. I brace myself, because no matter what any of us does, he's always got something that he's going to bitch about. Put on my best service smile, pitch up my voice a bit, and I am ready to deal with Mr. Twin's bullshit. Or so I thought. Because as it turns out, the deli has completely and utterly run out of roast beef. And nobody locked the items containing roast beef so that they could not be ordered. Oh my fucking god. His wrath erupted from the bowels of hell, because God forbid we not have roast beef. It's not as if roast beef was our most popular item, and we had been selling sandwiches all day. It is not as though we were having a sandwich deal that lasted an entire month, known as Hoagie Fest, where all of our sandwiches were discounted. It is not as though there were 100 or so people who came in before him and wanted roast beef as well. No. We, workers at the Goose, purposefully ran out of roast beef to make his day more difficult. Fuck. Naturally, he storms on over and takes it out on me because I already rung him up for his sandwich, which we do not have. Manager, who was tired of seeing me getting yelled at and tired of dealing with Mr. Twin, comes out of her office and offers to give him an upgrade from a 6-inch to an 8-inch. This shuts him up, but he's still pissed off about the roast beef. And then he leaves. It's not over here. It's never over when you're dealing with Mr. Twin. It never fucking stops when it comes to Mr. Twin. Later. I am at the register, ringing up my customers, still doing my retail voice, and still smiling, still sharing in-jokes with regulars, still trying to figure out where the hell this one type of cigarette is and finding out we don't even carry it. Ah, the life of retail. And then it happened. The doors open, and into the store steps Mr. Twin. He looks ready to murder anyone who speaks ill of him in his presence. And there I am, trying to figure out how to use EBT for this lovely customer who has been friendly, when Mr. Twin gets in line behind her. I tell her, "Have a good day, thanks for stopping by." And off she goes, and there's Mr. Twin, with a newspaper. He got into line, not to buy the newspaper, but to tell me to hold on to that copy behind the counter, because he was probably going to be in the store for another 5 minutes. Now a queue has lined up behind him, and Mr. Twin looks down at me and says very slowly, "Holding on to one little newspaper shouldn't be that hard, right? You can do that, can't you?" The dude behind him just stands there with an open mouth like, "What the fuck?" Gaping at Mr. Twin like, "What the fuck is your deal, bro?" I just smile at Mr. Twin and go, "Absolutely, sir," and grin. He fucks off for a bit, and there I am looking at the customer who was behind him, and I just look at him and go, "Don't worry, he's always like that with me." Mr. Twin was in earshot, storms up, grabs the newspaper, gives me a look that could probably kill a lesser human being, slams the newspaper onto the floor, and storms out, doesn't buy a goddamn thing, hops into his SUV, and peels out of the fucking parking lot. For months, that angry old man did not come in, because I said he was always like that with me. After months of him being a dick to myself, to my coworkers, to my boss, all I had to do to get him to fuck off was tell a concerned customer, "Mr. Twin is always like that." And then I moved to Minnesota and never had to deal with him again. So, yeah. That happened.